Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here's your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another conversation in Season 3 of the People in Fundraising podcast. And today I'm really excited on Monday, February 26th, 2024, to welcome Stacey MacDonnell to our podcast. Hi, Stacey.
Hi, Tim. It's so good to see you again. It's been a few years, but so excited to be here. I'm Stacey MacDonnell, as you said. I am currently the Assistant Vice President of Advancement Services for New Mexico State University Foundation.
Dynamite. I am so excited to hear more about that. Stacey and I knew each other from the New England Development Research Association, NEDRA's board, a couple of years ago. And I remember you left NEDRA, left New England, went to Tulane, and now you're in New Mexico. So I'd love for you, in the course of the conversation, to talk about that career path. I'm very excited to hear about it myself. But first, as we always do, if you could take a few minutes, Stacey, and talk with our audience about how you entered the nonprofit sector, please.
Sure. I have been in the nonprofit sector my entire career. And it all started as a student employee at my undergrad university, which was Elon University. It's a really small private school in North Carolina. And I know most people say this, but it was fate that brought me to that job. I was a prospect research student employee. I worked there for 2 years during my undergrad, and I realized, wow, this is pretty cool. I could see myself doing this as a career. And then graduated and ended up, luckily, with a prospect research specific position up in Boston. And that's where we met, Tim, of course. I don't know if you want me to go through the rest of the career trajectory or not, but yeah, that's how I started.
If you wouldn't mind, that would be great, please.
Sure. So I was lucky, like I said, I was lucky enough to get a position right out of college doing prospect research at Boston Children's Hospital in Boston, of course. I was really lucky to end up with an amazing mentor as a supervisor in that role that really encouraged me and helped me grow. And I realized I wanted to do prospect research as a career. And, you know, as a student, as a child, you don't think that that's even a career path, but I'm happy to say that I found it. And was at Boston Children's for about 7 years, learned so much. And then I had the opportunity to move to Harvard Law School, where, as you can imagine, it's almost an embarrassment of riches for Harvard, especially if you're a prospect researcher, because basically every alumni is interesting and you can go down a rabbit hole.
Oh, definitely.
And from there, like you mentioned, I moved to Tulane, got the opportunity to do some corporate and foundation specific prospect research. I'm the type of person where I'm always looking for a new challenge, something new. So it was the CFR side of fundraising was a different animal, and it continues to be. And so I'm lucky that I got that opportunity. I was at Tulane for about 6-7 years.
Okay.
And New Orleans is I love New Orleans. It's a tough place to live.
Sure.
So it was time to move on. And I found this opportunity here at New Mexico State and joined as the director of prospect management and research for a few different reasons. Some folks left, and was given the opportunity to serve as interim vice president of development. So running the entire fundraising operation here at NMSU for about 9 months.
Whoa.
And yeah, happy to talk more about that. But and then just in January, we went through some restructuring and kind of split that development team up into some separate sections. And so that's where my AVP of Advancement Services came in.
Wow. So you're just a few weeks into being the AVP.
Yep. About 2 months. Yep.
Wow.
It's
And
been a
how long?
whirlwind.
Yes, I can imagine. And how long have you been at NMSU, please?
I have been here about 1.5 years now.
Okay, so relatively new to the state,
Yes.
come in prospect management, get the interim role, and now you're in the AVP. That is a lot of change in a little bit of time.
Yes, it is. But we have such a fantastic team here.
Yeah.
And we're really of that mindset where, we all jump in and help where we can. So it just made sense. And now I'm happy to say that I'm learning a lot more. My previous career was basically just focused on prospect management and research.
Yeah.
Now I'm working with stewardship. I'm working with CFR again, and data and prospect management research. So it's
Wow.
been fun. Two months. It's been fun.
That's terrific. And I know from our time on the NEDRA board that you have that sort of can-do spirit about you. So not surprised that you are doing well in this new role. And it's the broader advancement services, not just, as you mentioned, prospect development, but stewardship and so forth.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Again, it's been 2 months, but kind of dipping my toe into these other areas, especially stewardship. It's been a huge learning curve, because it's everything I had done previously was so internally facing, and everything with stewardship is, for our external donors and prospects and all that. So it's been a change, but it's been good.
Sure. Yeah. In terms of, I can imagine there, are new skills that you're developing, but also just sort of a mindset shift as well. And there must be associations like NEDRA for the other pieces of this umbrella that you're now overseeing. I don't imagine, I don't know. Have you had, in 2 months, if you had time to kind of dip your toes into those realms with stewardship or gift recognition and things like that?
I haven't, but I've looked into it, and there is an advancement services organization like NEDRA, like an APRA.
Okay.
It's called AASP. So I need to do a little more digging into that and explore, my new path. But
Yeah, definitely. That's great. I'm just gonna quickly check my lighting here.
Sure.
I swear I didn't look this in the see, like that would be perfect. My laptop will not stay like this though. But anyhow, thank you for your patience.
Oh, of course.
So,
oh, there it goes again.
There it goes again. See, I don't know. I don't know. You're my first guest from New Mexico, and so I would love, representing New Mexico, I would love for you to talk a little bit, Stacey, about what that, the new location, certainly New Orleans has a very vibrant, distinct culture. You've been in New England for a while before then. Talk with us about acclimating to New Mexico, please.
Well, I'm thrilled to be representing New Mexico on your show as the first guest. New Mexico is wonderful. We're called the Land of Enchantment for a reason. I visited and just fell in love with this state and the people here and the culture. I'm just thrilled to be here and be helping NMSU. And on a more personal note, it's been really great for me because NMSU is a land grant university.
Yeah.
We serve tons of first generation college kids. We're a Hispanic serving institute. So my previous career path, I wasn't as close to those sort of initiatives and those sort of groups of people. And I'm thrilled that I have the chance to do that now. And so, speaking of New Mexico, it's just wonderful. It's been it's been a learning opportunity for me. I'm not from here, but I'm thrilled to say I'm a New Mexican now, and hopefully help Southern New Mexico just keep leveling up and elevating, and help highlight and showcase all the amazing things that we're doing here at NMSU and our amazing students.
Yeah, that's so cool. And to have at this point in your career, to have that be a primary focus of the work you do and supporting the mission, it's so valuable.
Yes, and as I mentioned, of course, I'm so thankful for all of my previous work experiences, but I do truly feel personally really connected to the mission here, more so than anywhere else I've ever worked. So that's just the icing on the cake, right?
Yeah, that's great. Good for you. I love that.
Yeah.
So we've already covered the first two questions, which well done by you. Um, and we talked a little bit just then as a preface about what it's been like for you to live in New Mexico, the land of enchantment. I've had a few guests over the last 2 years that have lived in multiple parts of the country. So Amber Countess, that we knew from the NEDRA board, is one of them. I didn't ask Amber and other people this question number 3, but it's come up as I think about trying to spotlight the person as well as the professional. And when my family and I moved to Utah 6 years ago, like we knew what to expect. We'd been out here to visit my wife's family countless times. But I'm always curious to know what it's like, adjusting not just to a new role and new colleagues, but in your experience, now you've lived in various states, starting with your undergrad, into where you are now in New Mexico. So have there been, new discoveries for you about living in distinct parts of our country, whether that's the cuisine, the music, civic activities, certainly New Mexico with outdoors and a very multicultural environment. So anything come to mind in those realms?
Yeah, and I think that's what my husband and I are always searching for, that culture, like the food, the music.
Yeah.
I grew up traveling and moving around a lot.
Okay.
So I kind of thrive off of exploring something new, a new culture, a new place.
Yeah.
And, like I said, we really did fall in love with New Mexico. The food here is incredible. The big thing is red or green chili,
Oh,
of
okay.
course. You can also pick Christmas, which is both. But that's kind of the state question. And I will say my taste buds have already adapted to the level of heat that comes with those chili. When I first moved, it was like, oh my gosh, so spicy, but we've slowly adjusted. I'm happy to say, and I can handle the heat now a little better. Um, but it's all those fun things that makes working in the career that we do fun, because
Yeah.
I get to, especially in my new roles where I'm a little more outwardly facing, I get to talk to our alumni and our donors about what makes this place special.
Yeah.
And of all of the places I've worked, I have never seen or worked with such a engaged and like just wonderful alumni base. They truly feel so connected to this place, and it's really inspiring, as somebody just coming in, and I'm not an alum.
Yeah.
But even folks in our community, it's a small town. We're here in Las Cruces in southern New Mexico. It's a true college town. So the entire community supports this university, whether you're an alumni or not. We have the folks filling up the basketball games every night. We're not, we're doing okay right now. But even when we're not winning, people, it's part of the community is going to those games and
Yeah.
supporting the university. So I really look for that, and somewhere I'm living, I want to be a part of a community that's supporting higher education and all of the amazing things that come with that, like the marching bands and the sports and the plays and
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I wanted to ask a follow-up question, Stacey, because you just mentioned your role now is a little more outward facing. So if you could just talk with us kind of, you know, off the cuff. It's not one of the questions I gave you ahead of time. I'm
That's
just curious
okay.
to know like what that has been like for you at this point in your career to um, have that piece of engaging with alumni and donors as part of your portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, a really great question because that was a huge change for me. As a prospect researcher, I was in my desk staring at my computer, doing research all day.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it's been very, very fulfilling because, as a prospect researcher at heart, always, I I like learning and hearing about people's stories, and
Yeah.
just meeting them in person and hearing it is just even better.
Yeah.
And like I said, our alumni here they're just wonderful, and they're so passionate and so engaged. Um, they're excited, to talk to somebody from the foundation about how NMSU changed their life, because
Oh,
it has changed most people's lives that have gone here.
that's dynamite. Yeah, it
Yeah.
must be so gratifying to hear those stories.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it was a shift, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, but luckily, I consider myself a semi-outgoing person, so it's helped. But I'm definitely, shout out to all the introverts out there, because I'm a total introvert too. So whenever I have to go and be on in front of our alumni and donors, I need like an entire day after to just
Yes.
sit alone at my house and not talk to anybody. So you can do it even if you're an introvert.
That's right. I recently, maybe the last 2 years, heard the term ambivert. So like
Oh,
you're situationally dependent. You are either introverted or extroverted. So
that might be me.
could be you. Yes. My next question for you goes back a ways to your Boston Children's days, Stacey. And we're both prospect researchers, so I do a little bit of research before I put these questions together. So you were still, well, 2017. Were you still on the NEDRA board in 17?
Think so. It might have been my last year though.
Okay. So at that time, you were interviewed by NEDRA for their newsletter, and you mentioned that, quote, 7 years of working with the prospect research team at Boston Children's was invaluable to my career, and I owe each of them a debt of gratitude for the wealth of prospect research knowledge they imparted to me. And that's the end of the snippet of your quote.
Wow, I don't even remember doing that interview, but okay, great.
Yeah. So if you could think back, what did you learn and what still resonates in your career? What do you still draw upon, whether it's advice, counsel, how to be a leader of a team? Anything come to mind?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, as I mentioned, my supervisor there was David Eberly, who's
Mm.
kind of a rock star in the prospect research world.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was lucky enough to work with him for 7 years and learn from him.
Mhm.
Um, and beyond him, our entire team, like I mentioned, was incredible too.
Yeah.
I want to give shout outs, but I won't, because I don't want to miss anybody. But
Sure.
they know who they are, and I still keep in touch with all of them, and they're incredible.
Awesome.
But I'll say, the biggest thing that I still think about that David Eberly taught me was that you have to know when to stop researching.
Yeah.
Because especially as researchers, our tendencies are, well, I can keep looking. Let me just keep looking for this one piece of information I need.
Yes.
But you have to balance that with making things concise and quality, and obviously getting it to people in a timely manner. So I still think about that all the time, because it's so easy to go down those rabbit holes and just keep going and going and going. But at what, for what reason? Sometimes
Yeah.
you just gotta stop.
Right. I like that a lot. And I feel like that is definitely a challenge. And I've talked to one or two people, other guests on this program, and they've said, like, particularly as they're onboarding and mentoring junior prospect researchers who have grown up in a world with instant access to, any amount of information, any type, whether it's factual or not, that has been such a challenge, is helping to onboard junior staff and say, like, as in a way, what you just said, like, when to stop. What resources are you going to? Can you trust them? Can you verify them?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just thought of another thing too that's kind of relates to that I learned at Boston Children's is, I think too, as researchers, we have the tendency to want to share every single piece of information we find,
Yeah.
but not always is that the best thing to do. You have to synthesize that information in a way that's easily digestible to your reader. And that can be difficult too, as a young researcher, even me, you want to, I found all this, I want to make sure somebody knows, but that's our job as a researcher to decide what's the most important piece of information that needs to be shared.
Yeah. So valuable. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, of course. Mhm. And you're right, it's so different now. There's just so much out there, and it's getting harder and harder to know what's real and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, something to keep our eyes on.
Mhm.
Well, Stacey, I know you have a 1 o'clock meeting. I wanted to get this last question in, and I think it touches on what you mentioned earlier in our conversation. We both had worked at Harvard, and we were well accustomed to pretty much any vendor we wanted, we could make a case for and subscribe. So definitely that sense, as you mentioned, of embarrassment of riches. One of my favorite quotes that I try to relate to work comes from Henry Ford, and I actually used it in my last job to make a case to get a grateful patient consultant. So I'm going to read the quote, and then I would love to hear if you have had experiences that relate to this quote from the various shops that you've worked at.
Great.
So Henry Ford once said, if you need a machine and don't buy it, you will ultimately find that you have paid for it and don't have it. And I really like that. So thank you for letting me work it into your questionnaire today.
Oh, of course.
So, again, from Harvard to Tulane to NMSU, what has that been like in terms of resources for you, your teams, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just like you mentioned, of course, it's Harvard. We had access to anything and everything.
Yeah.
Tulane was pretty similar.
Oh.
Here we're absolutely we're thinking a little harder about where we want to devote our time and our money towards with resources. To be honest, though, I haven't felt like it's been to the detriment of what my team does and what we do in research. And I think that just goes to show that you can do this job. You don't have to have access to WealthX and all the hundreds of really specific vendor options that have come out in the past couple years. I mean, Google is being Google now, and it's getting harder to search things on Google.
Right.
But yeah, I hope I answered that question. I don't know if I did, but
Yeah, no, and you did. I've had a similar experience. My day job, I'm at Weber State University, so it's probably a few scales down from NMSU. It's a heavily commuter focused university. We've only been a university for about 30-ish years. So you see the ripple effects of 98% of the students live off campus, and it's only been about 3 decades that there's been a real sort of a stronger alumni feel. So yeah, I've had to be more nimble and to say, I would love this. We can't get it. What can I do instead? And or try to make the case like, no, we really do need this. Like, if you're gonna tell me no to this vendor, I'm gonna make a harder case for this one.
Yeah. Honestly, one of our biggest challenges at this point is just our data in general. It's all over the place and all over the map. So to be honest, I don't even feel like we're at a place where I can start even digging into those sort of other resources until we clean up what we have currently.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, Stacey, it has been so great to reconnect with you. It's been a few years, and I hope now that we're in the same time zone again, that perhaps
Mountain time.
Yeah. I don't know if you're involved with APRA Swaro, and maybe you're,
I had just got involved. I need to get more involved.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know you'll have AASP as well too, so.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate this so much, Tim. I'm so happy, like I said, to be able to represent New Mexico.
Absolutely. It's been a delight. Thank you so much, Stacey.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. And for our audience, you'll be able to find Stacey's interview on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the audio only will be on Spotify at the end of May. So just a few months. And thanks again for supporting this podcast. And thank you to my great guest today, Stacey. And we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.